Hey friends and family, Russ Allen here, and I want to welcome you to episode 1 of Moments. I don't know if this will be the eventual name of the book that I'm working on, but at least for these videos, I think that's the best name because I'm going to be using episodes to talk about moments that have made me who I am today. And I'm actually going to begin with the absolute worst moment of my life when I was just barely 15 years old. It's about 30 years ago now, so it's definitely time to start telling this story. Parts of it are going to be hard to hear, but I want you to know more than anything that the reason that I'm doing this is that I hope that if you're watching this right now, that you can have some hope in your life to know that God can bring you from such terrible places to the most amazing places as well, because the moments in my life obviously shape who I have become today. So this first story will probably be the very hardest for me to tell and probably also for you to hear. But I just want you to know that this story that you're going to hear right now is not where I am today. But to take you on the journey, we obviously need a starting place. We're going to have a route of how we get to the place that we are today, and hopefully talk a little bit at some point about where this whole thing actually winds up. So, getting started, the story begins when I was 15 years old, just about a month after I had turned 15, actually, and 2 o'clock in the morning, and I find myself sitting in a city hall because that's where the police officer had taken me to and called my mom to come pick me up. I was out after curfew, and I was just 15 years old. I was underage. He had also called the Division of Family Services, who had sent someone out there as well. So this scene, it begins with the four of us sitting at the table, and I'm sitting in a chair. My mom is directly across from me. Directly to my left is the lady that had been sent from the Division of Family Services in the middle of the night. And directly across from her, sitting next to my mom, was the police officer that had picked me up. He's just doing his job and doing what he's supposed to do. But the story gets to this point really from a week prior to that. And so what had happened was, my mom had been learning about crystal meth. Actually, she was very well into a crystal meth addiction. It was a brand new drug back in that time. And so we were fighting left and right. We were essentially homeless. We were living with her current boyfriend, who had a one bedroom cabin on the river. It was a beautiful place. But the only place for me to sleep was a couch on the screened porch on the front. Now, this would have been probably a dream for a teenager during certain times of the year, the river flowing, being outside. I actually love being outside. But in this case, I had been sleeping out there all winter. And in Southwest Missouri, it gets down into the teens at night. So I'm sleeping out there with a sleeping bag, and it's a kind of a rough go of it. And so every morning I have to roll up the sleeping bag and put it away, and things like that. And so what had happened was this particular day in early April, as I said, about a month after I'd turned 15, and I didn't put that sleeping bag away. And that afternoon, when mom and I interacted, we had a big fight about it. She threw my stuff out. She told me to pack my stuff and hit the road. And I said, fine. Well, my stuff was a sleeping bag and a duffel bag. Everything I had fit into a single duffel bag. And so we actually lived about a mile from the nearest paved road. And so another mile to an intersection where I could catch the bus to school. And so there was a little bank right there, but oddly enough had this roof that stuck out extra on the back. And I had gone to one other place to see if they could put me up, and they couldn't. And so I actually slept behind this bank for a week. I had a weightlifting class the first hour before blocks in schools, but I had a weightlifting class so I could get a shower. I had a free lunch. We didn't have breakfasts at the time at the school, but I was already on free lunches, so I got a meal a day. I had a couple of bucks to get a little bit to eat at night, and then I would bed down that night. And of course, I could carry that stuff to school with me and back. And then, oddly enough, nobody asked any questions about me carrying a sleeping bag and a duffel bag for a whole week to school, shoving it in my locker and things like that. But I did that for a week because I didn't know what to do. The only way I had to get a shower and to get food, of course, was to go to school, and I had friends at school. And so I was just trying to figure out what in the world I was going to do. And I just wasn't coming up with anything. And so it leads up to that night. This went on for about a week, and leads up to that night that the police officer sees me walking down the road. And he asked me what I'm doing, and I said, well, I'm just going home. And of course, I'm lying through my teeth. Everything I'm saying is a lie to try and get out of being in trouble with this police officer. And he's super nice. I'll never forget that he was very gentle and very caring, but he wasn't buying all the junk that was coming out of my mouth. And so he put me in the car and took, he said, he finally got down to it, and he said, what's your mom's number? And called her, and so he's asking me, what are you really doing out here? And I said, well, my mom kicked me out a week ago. I finally just came clean. And so he called the Division of Family Services. He knew that was a big red flag, that I had been sleeping outside, for a week, hadn't been home. And so we get to that moment in the city hall where we're sitting. It's 2:00 in the morning. It's been a long day for me, obviously, and I'm tired. My mom was tired. I don't know if she was high or not. I don't remember that, or if she was jonesing for a high. Of course, the lady beside me from the Division of Family Services, she's tired. The police officer, it's just how well could it possibly go? Everybody's hungry and tired, and it's the middle of the night. And so they're asking my mom questions, and I'm just sitting there. I'd told the police officer my side of things, and so they're asking her, and I honestly don't remember the things that she was saying as she's describing the situation and what's going on, but I will never, ever, ever forget that moment that she's telling all this to the lady beside me and the police officer. She's never looked at me. And so she finally tells the woman beside me, because she knows who she is. She says these words. She says, you can have him. I don't want him anymore. Such words should never come out of anyone's mouth, but especially a mother's. And to a 15-year-old child that, at this point had never even met his father, so many different things. And I'll cover more of this story, how we got up to this point, and what happened after that in future episodes. But that moment, that is a defining moment in my life, to hear my mother say the words to somebody else, you can have him, I don't want him anymore. And she stood up, and she didn't look at me. She didn't say anything to me. It was like I wasn't even there. And she stormed out the door. And there I was. She'd already kicked me out. But in that moment, the absolute rejection that I felt was unmatched at any point in my life. And I remember in my head, I was like, absolutely nobody wants me. If my mother doesn't want me, nobody's ever going to want me. Now I start thinking in my head about how bad of a kid I am and the things that I've done. And, there's a list. This is not all one-sided, I promise you that. I was definitely a contributor to a lot of these things. But still, to hear those words, you can have him, I don't want him anymore, and out the door, and that's it. The police officer, of course, is kind of, okay, looks at the lady sitting to my left with Division of Family Services and says, well, what do we do? And she says, well, we'll put him in an emergency foster home tonight, and then we'll take it from there. And so by now, it's probably about 3 in the morning, and I'm in a car being driven to I don't know where. And by about 4 in the morning, I'm sitting in the living room of a home with people that I don't know. I'm not even sure. It was dark. I'm not even positive where I am on the planet. But I'm sitting there, and I'm so tired. I'm just gone. I'm just done. But in all of this time, I've been already building the foundation to never be hurt again, to never let anyone remotely close to me. And I figure if I don't let anyone close, no one can ever hurt me. And so in that short time, I decided that I would never be close to anyone again. And I would always look out for number one. I'd look out for me. I'm 15 years old and I've just entered foster care for the first time. And I feel like absolutely nobody wants me. I feel like everybody is my enemy. I'll never forget the moment that she said that, the night that surrounded it, the week that led up to it, is the absolute worst part of my life ever. I finally got to sleep. The sun was about to come up. I remember I could actually see out the window. I could see the sky was lighting up from the sunrise. And, it had been a wild night. I was exhausted and I finally fell asleep for a few hours. And that's where I'm going to end this particular episode. I'm going to end this story. But I want you to know that that is not where I am today. I'm just reminding that that is not the end of the story, if I can do a little Paul Harvey. Because today, in this moment, 30 years later, for years now, I've been completely free of all the pain. You've heard me just tell this story, and yes, it's dramatic and it still moves me, but not so much me personally. It's almost like I'm telling someone else's story because I am so free from it. And the reconciliation between me and my mother is great. We have a great relationship today. I have a great relationship with a lot of my family. We live far apart. We don't see each other talk a lot. But there's so many things that I want to share with you in future episodes about how I've come from that place across the years to where I am today. But our next episode, we're actually going to be looking back further to see how we got to that point and a few of the things. And these videos are actually to help me put this together in a book form, because my ultimate goal, again, is just that if you're watching this or if you read the book that I finally put together, remember I said I don't know how to write a book. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to put it down on paper and see where it goes. But I just want to see if I can share my story with people that it will resonate with them in a place that they either are or in a place that they have been, and to try and help them come through that with a hope that there is freedom, there is redemption, there is reconciliation. I will tell you up front that I give all of the credit to God for using people and circumstances and intervening in my life in different ways for 45 years now. And so that's going to be the reason, so don't be shocked. I'll gladly discuss it with you from your vantage points, but I just want you to know that you can truly be free from these things. So thank you for your time to watch, and I look forward to seeing you again soon in episode 2.